Uh, when did you and Gertrude Stein?
Oh, I met her when I came over here. I never knew her before.
You hadn't
In
known
fact,
her.
I didn't know. When I met Sarah Neichstein, I thought he was an only child. He had that air. Do you know of an only child?
Yes.
Been very carefully raised and was
Oh,
very quiet
just
and has a deep appreciation for having been
for
an
having
only
been
child.
that way.
Well,
Yes.
I had that impression of him. And then I found that he had a brother, because Harry Levi had met Gertrude and Leo and spent a winter in their society in Florence by the time I knew her.
And that was when they had been living in Florence before.
Well,
Gertrude
Gertrude wasn't living there. She was just spending some months there with her brother.
Was that
I don't
Fiesole?
think, I think that was I wouldn't really be certain if that was before her last year at medical school or not.
Had you been acquainted at all with the family at that time?
I never known it. As I say, I met Mike Stein and his wife,
Yes.
just isolated, in San Francisco, and didn't know anything about their family at all. Never knew anything about the family.
And it was through his introduction or referral to...
No, it was
Gertrude
through Sarah Stein, rather than Mike, that I met Gertrude at their house, because Harry Levi had been an intimate friend of Sarah Stein's, and she said, let's go and see the Steins. The day we arrived, and we went there, and Gertrude was there.
What was your impression at the...
But she had
first
these
meeting?
beauty. She had a certain physical beauty and considerable and enormous power that she
You felt that power.
Oh, definitely,
immediately.
definitely.
Radiated.
Yes, she sat there and said nothing as usual. She didn't talk until she commenced to talk. You see, and she sat there and smiled a little bit, just a small smile, and she had these. Such wonderful eyes, and that impression of eyes.
In other words, you could communicate actually just by visually.
Well, I don't know if there was any communication, but I just drank it in.
Right. Yes. It would certainly be
I was
impressive.
so much younger in experience. I wasn't so much younger in years. I was only 2 years and a few months younger. But it was the enormous life that she led, that you could see.
The vitality is...
Well, yes, and the experience. And experience, too.
But this experience would, to a considerable portion, be the inward experience, wouldn't it?
Yes, sure.
She had absorbed so much.
Yes, sure.
And had a feeling inside of her, and yet...
But it wasn't that really. She had so much sense of life. Such an enormous sense of life, and what life was, you know, and the thing that was alive.
That's a rare quality, certainly.
Oh, sure. Well, that's
Very rare.
part of the genius.
Yes.
Picasso has it to the equal extent, you see.
Just feeling it automatically.
Yes.
Without being really conscious of it.
Well, you become conscious because you live in it and it moves around you all the past experience. Gives a richness to every new vision.
So I suppose you wouldn't feel relationship to any one period or time, but sort of engulfing experience.
Yes. Well, because Picasso, and Juan Gris even more delicately than Picasso, understood everything literally. Well, first of all, he knew everything about painting in an extraordinary sense. His genius was lightened on those points. So the viewer asked Juan what something meant. He could always give you the full answer, and it was always so. What anything meant. And I used to tease him and say that he was Andrea del Sarto, and he didn't like it. He said, that's a bad joke, Harry. And I said, well, maybe it's a bad joke, but it's true. And I remember once And the worst of it is I'd never bring it back. I knew it until a few years ago. Now it escaped me and I never recovered it. What it was that I wanted to know of a woman who was smiling. Why did she smile at that moment? I said to Joan, did you notice her smile? And it was some story, and we knew part of it or something. And something had been said, and I saw her have a wee smile.
Just a vague smile.
So I said to Joan, did you see her smile? And Joan said, yes, of course I did. I said, what did that mean, Joan? And Joan answered me, gave me the answer to the question that had been in our heads for months. It's an understanding, that's just
understanding, I think, is a very good word.
Understanding, but complete and profound.
In other words,
Gertrude Stein came to that, as a woman once said. I quoted that to Katz the other night when he was asking questions. She asked her once, and to our great amusement, we thought it was a scream. She said, she was an intelligent woman and very sympathetic. She said, listen, Miss Stein, do you come to your conclusions about character from experience, intuition, or imagination? Well, we just thought that was a scream, because Gertrude's work at that time on the psychology, what she called the bottom nature of people, you see, was profound. Her work was enormous. It was one of comparison and of likeness and difference every minute of the day. So that when she said this so easily, we thought it was a great joke.
When Gertrude Stein did work, she worked with an intense energy, didn't she?
Well, it really wasn't energy. It was more than that. It was with complete comprehension. The thing was clear, finally, not in those early days. Up to see, Katz has given me the date more particularly than I really realized, that up to, from the beginning until about 1920, there was a good deal of actual work, of preparation in the building up of character before she wrote. But after that, she gave up that whole theory. She believed it was true, but she was no longer interested. So that she had in her mind so clear that there was no hesitation when she sat down to write it off as quickly as her hand would move. And there are no corrections in the manuscript from that day on.
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever. So much so, there's a great joke. When Yale got the manuscripts, they wrote to me and said, there are so few corrections. Are these, have you the earlier typescript? And there are so few corrections. I said, there are no corrections. It's my bad typewriting that she corrected. Because they said, well, we see by her handwriting that there are very few. And I said it was because my typewriting was not infallible.
Actually, I think you mentioned in the autobiography of yourself that you got such a much deeper appreciation of Gertrude Stein's meaning by having either proofread or having typewritten.
Yes. Well, you see, you get the rhythm of the thing finally by reading proof.
Yes.
In the phrasing, because we did the experience in reading proof was really the long book, The Making of Americans, done by French compositors, so that you look for every letter as well as every word. And we read proof of some of parts of it 14 times.
My golly.
That
Just to
long
make sure that
we worked
they were
together for about one reading and the other correcting. For about 9 hours a day for over 5 months on that book.
Yes. That was a dedicated task.
It was frightfully fatiguing. We were exhausted when it was over. We spent our summer at it, our vacation.